Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair, and the March of the Clowns continues with Funland. Released in 1987, Funland is a movie with a minuscule budget and an aesthetic that I'm not entirely sure is intentionally meant to seem like it's even lower budget than it really is, or if the master film for this movie simply wasn't kept in the best condition over the years. Perhaps it comes as no surprise that Funland didn't do all that well when initially released. Well, it's kind of hard to say why, because there's not very much information for this movie available, and when you want to get down to specific details, they are really damn hard to find. But the point is, it fits the March of the Clowns well, as the main focus is it's a clown that goes around in a dark comedy. At least according to whoever sorts the rental places. Funland is about an amusement park called Funland. Things have been great and oodles of joy for decades. However, tragedy strikes, and before you know it, the whole park is being renovated. This normally wouldn't be a problem, except for the fact that the resident clown of the park, Bruce Berger, finds himself on the chopping block in the restructuring. Oh, well, only thing to do in this situation is go even crazier and start planning out how you're going to kill everyone! I'm sure there's also options for counseling or just moving on with your life, but that makes for a pretty shitty movie. So let's take a look at Funland and see if we can stand the 4:3 aspect ratio for the duration of the review. Well, it gets off on the right foot, as like any good 80s comedy, it starts off with a pretty sweet musical number.
I remember years ago, my friends and I'd ride down to a place where we could rock all night in the middle of our town.
They kind of fucked up the visual aspect of the opening. It's just black background and text over it. But hey, you can still enjoy the little ode to the amusement park. Thus, after about a minute of this, we jump right into character introductions with the clown of the tale, Bruce Berger, played by David L. Lander.
$1 on every ticket goes to a very worthy cause. Isn't that so, Timmy?
Cut! Bruce, try not to be so rough on Timmy. Timmy's the poster child, remember?
Oh, come on, what's the worst that's gonna happen? The kid's already in a wheelchair. Establishing first and foremost that he's not exactly good at his job, but going by the push for new hires, it looks like the park doesn't really have the highest standards for things like this, just enough bodies to deal with the park's various needs.
Customer regurgitation brigade, lard courier, and scum scraper.
And first thing to note, while this movie is filed under dark comedy, it really comes off more like a comedy, where people occasionally die. It's that kind of dark comedy. Not saying that in and of itself makes it a bad movie, mind you. The quality of the comedy comes down to the writing, acting, and overall execution, such as we see in the resident geek character, Darlene Dorkner, played by one of the screenwriters, Bonnie Turner.
I type 300 words a minute, I can create my own software, and I hope to promote world peace through the use of electronic office equipment or superior firepower, whichever comes first.
Utilizing the latest technology in word processing to produce high-capacity magazines. It's almost opening week for the park and they gotta get everything ready, especially with a contest they're holding in which one lucky child will get to spend the day with Bruce Berger, something which causes the newer employees to question the park's seemingly self-destructive adherence to the current clown on hand. Thus, Angus Perry, played by William Wyndham, tells Mike Spencer, played by Bruce Mahler, to explain the situation to the audience.
Brewster's underwrites us just a little bit until the money comes in.
I know why you have a clown from Brewster's. What I'm asking is why you have a clown from the Twilight Zone.
The budget wouldn't allow for Pennywise. They explained that Bruce Berger has been a part of Funland since its inception, and in fact the man was the best in his class. However, things just haven't been the same ever since the man had that little nervous breakdown and went mad in front of 100 or so senior citizens. It's alright though, he means more to the management than a little psychotic episode can ruin.
All we have to do is keep an eye on him during this opening week. The excitement makes him jumpy, and we wouldn't want to have another incident like that one last year.
We had to tranquilize him like we do the park dolphins.
With a fish stuffed with acetylpromazine? But they should be fine as long as Bruce keeps to himself. And we suddenly teleport to Bruce introducing himself to everyone, so he can let them all meet his friend, the very phallically suggestive Peter Pepperoni. Until he's got to leave, in any case, as it's time to go and talk to Mike.
May I come in too?
Yes, Peter, you can come in too.
You come in.
And it must be hard being a pepperoni. There's so many places that just won't let you in just because you happen to be food or drink. Bruce, however, has some other problems he'd like taken care of.
I want the name on my check changed.
It's made out to you, isn't it?
No, it's made out to Neil Stickney.
Right.
And while the general consensus is that Bruce might be a little crazy, he's actually a lot crazy. There's a lot more crazy, and he's getting a lot crazier. It's crazy.
Brucey, ever think about endorsing some other kind of product, maybe, like, how about mixed nuts?
I know you're just insulting the guy, but please do it in a way that doesn't make me think about clowns dressed in cashew Speedos. It's not just the problem with the checks that need fixing, though.
We want a bigger dressing room. The one we got right now is too small. Too small.
You could ask if he wants fries with that, but chances are he'd specify curly.
Well, it would be nice. I'll tell you what, Mike. I'll come by later and give you a list of all my demands, okay?
See what I mean? Bigger dressing room, curly fries, and a 200% increase in the production of clown porn until further notice. Enough business talk, though. It's time to see all the new hires getting acquainted with their new jobs and the hilarious 80s comedy that ensues.
And I'll be instructing you today in the proper working procedure of the watermelon theme concession stand. Now, how many of you are good with knives?
I'll get you. Yeah, you could not get away with these jokes today. Mainly because in an effort to prove you wrong, someone would stab you. This whole section, though, is pretty pointless. It's fun, but pointless, as even recurring characters, such as Chip Cox, played by Randall Patrick, don't really matter in the big scheme of things.
Take your pepperoni stencil and apply 3 and only 3 of your pepperoni glob dots.
Unless that in and of itself is a commentary on the concept of junior supervisors in amusement parks handing out barely edible substitutes for food. The major things to keep in mind are that evidently before Bruce went a bit cuckoo and forgot he was ever Neil, Neil was the original accountant in the park and a wizard with numbers. Also, there happens to be another company who is looking to buy the park from Angus, but he's not having that.
The day that they take this park away from me, it will be over my dead body.
How long until...
Owner and operator of Funland, dead at age 58.
Of course. Meaning it's time for the funeral, where we see Bruce Berger done up in mournful, sad clown makeup, giving a heartwarming eulogy.
I remember Mr. Hurley leaving Angus's office one afternoon, shouting at me, "Why doesn't he just die?" Well, he has.
Showing how much Angus truly meant to the world, and that Bruce possibly was the only guy who actually had his back.
Dear God! Why did you take our Angus when you could have had any one of these people? Amen.
That's love right there. Thing is, with the death of Angus, there is the looming question. What will come of Funland?
Oh, by the way, I've sold the park to Ann Nico.
You've sold...
Turns out Muriel Moore, playing the widow, Mrs. Perry, sold the park before the man was even in the ground. See what I mean about the eulogy? It's much, much more respectful to the guy. Of course, the question of how and why comes up, at which point she explains that they put up the stock as collateral. After explaining with Angus dead she owned the stock, the former accountant turned clown explains the concept to the audience.
Oh, leverage buying is getting more and more common. It sounds like you're buying what you're getting, when in fact, you're selling what you're buying. Leverage buying.
Effectively, they use the stock they would own as collateral against the purchase. So, in essence, they bought the park for $10. But who would do something so underhanded and devious? At least we can assume all leverage buying is sinister in nature. It was in a movie and done by a bad guy. Mario DeMaru, played by Robert Sacchi.
See Carlo if you have a question. See Lawrence if you have a problem.
Who is a mobster gang member, godfather type of evil. You can tell from the cotton stuffed in his cheeks. That and his right-hand men are his two sons, Carl, the businessman, played by Terry Beaver, and Larry, the muscle, played by Richard Reiner. We see what both of them have to offer as Carl laughs while talking about cutting costs 20%, and Bruce comes in to talk about his list of demands, causing Larry to spring into action.
Hi, Henry dear. I was... All right, no rush, no rush. I can be thinking... I'm in my room all day.
Which is strangely the same reaction some subscribers had after learning that I was doing a clown-themed month of reviews. However, while the mob boss wants to run a frugal Funland, they still have some standards. Seeing that Neil is the face of Bruce Berger in their establishment, that just won't do. The opening weekend is coming up, and they have that big contest to have one of the kids win a day with Bruce Berger. So why have the nobody on hand do it when they can get the national Bruce Berger instead?
Are those new boys, they're gonna play ball with us? Because if not, Mike, I may not work the park opening this year.
Bruce, you're not going to be working the park opening this year.
That's not how you break the news. You gotta be positive with these kind of things, like, hey, Bruce, good news! You get a surprise vacation! Unpaid, and non-negotiable. He takes this news a little worse when he finds out why, though.
They want the real Bruce Berger.
The real Bruce Berger? He's the real Bruce Burger.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say real. I meant to say...
I can't believe it's not Bruce Burger. To make matters worse, he's told that he's not getting his bigger dressing room. In fact, his current one is going to have to be handed over to the big-name Bruce Burger when he arrives, and Neil here is going to need to move into the defunct Wax Museum for the time being. No bother, it's time to introduce the big clown himself, Bruce Burger, played by Chad Peller, played by Lane Davies.
I will not spend 1 minute with your precious little lucky winner.
You know, Chad, if I could...
I want to play Hamlet, damn it, not a hamburger!
Who, being a professional stage actor, fucking despises this role almost as much as he hates children. Though, I'm just confused by the whole clown selling food thing. I mean, his name is Bruce Burger, and he dresses like a pizza. They say he has the pizza burger, and we see on the signs him selling burgers. But in reality, we see them selling pizza. Which does... This is gonna bother me for like 3 years. Things turn a bit ugly, though, when it seems that Bruce didn't leave in time for Bruce's arrival, making for an awkward situation when this room somehow ain't big enough for even 2 clowns.
Put that stupid puppet away or I'll use it to blow my nose.
Tell him to shove a pole up his ass and we'll use him to mop the floor.
Joke's on you, Peter. That man's already got his sticks jammed squarely up there. Okay, that happened. Bruce Burger got his ass kicked to the curb so hard the audio desynced from the movie momentarily. Thus, it's off to the Wax Museum for him, which is a lot lonelier than you'd think, considering practically all the wax figures have already been sold off, spared a couple. Thus, isolated, Bruce has little left to do but argue with his puppet and feel sorry for himself.
Say, could you give me a cigarette? No!
Come on, Peter. Give your partner a cigarette.
And this is the point of the movie where Neil's psychosis changes from subtext to central to the plot. And it's starting to reach Jerry territory at times. As he begins chatting it up with the wax figure of Humphrey Bogart, played by the same actor who plays Mario DeMaru, Robert Sacchi, who has portrayed Bogart in a lot of different 80s flicks, such as The Man with Bogart's Face. He's here for moral support.
Look, I'm not much of making speeches, but I know you gotta take what you can get.
Yeah, but you would never take this. You never took this in any of your movies.
But that was back in the 40s when a guy can shoot a few people and make a difference in the world.
Now it's the 80s. If neither the problem nor the solution involves nuclear weapons, robots, or both, nobody seems to care. Point is, Bogart basically tells him shit happens, so just face your life, and it's not like there's anything you can do about it. Thus, he puts a little makeup on a stiff upper lip and gives it his all during the early access VIP day at Funland. Something that doesn't go quite as well as he would hope.
And he's not really Bruce Burger. He's just an actor.
I'm not.
The National Bruce Burger is signing autographs in the Candyland section.
There's the real Bruce Burger!
You know, maybe Bogart's wrong about this. I'm sure a few bullets through the air would change the lives of these kids forever. So while his world is falling apart, the new management works hard on their second round of sweeping changes around the park, such as a few modifications to the Golden Horseshoe review.
It needs to be spicier.
Spicier?
Tits.
A Vegas-style chorus line. Huh?
Tits. Any problems?
No, I'm a big tit man myself.
Hey now, let's not forget the legs. That and the Wax Museum replacement is slated to be a tour of animatronic depictions of various celebrities dying in fun and historically accurate manners. Though, come to think, they could have just turned it into a cafeteria.
Well, what's good today?
Look at here. We got fresh hot burgers with apple pie. It's funk with all beef chunks.
You ask for a menu and they give you a musical number. I know the new owners are pushing for productivity, but damn. The entire place ends up joining in, dancing on tables, and we even get some dark bikini succubus for some reason. That reason. Well then, can we keep the succubus? Sadly, no, she's gone. But we get Angus back from the dead, joining Bruce in the line, and telling the man to buy enough food for both of them.
A little hungry today, huh, Bruce?
Well, half of it's for...
You know, after the chat with the pepperoni, Humphrey Bogart, and the sudden musical number at lunch, I'm not at all surprised that maybe, just maybe, Angus didn't actually come back from the dead and ask for a cheeseburger. But in Bruce's mind, he certainly did, and is waiting at the corner table to eat and tell Bruce some important stuff.
Do you know what the DeMaros did to me?
Did to you? What do you think they did to me? This isn't ketchup, you know.
They killed you?
And the truth is revealed. They killed Angus! Or at least Bruce thinks so. I mean, considering Angus is a figment of his imagination at this point, it's not like he can really give him any new information. As we see when Angus explains the various financial benefits a mob boss could gain out of an amusement park. Then he tells Bruce that Larry killed him with a gun in his briefcase. So, okay, fuck it, maybe he is a ghost. And if Bruce isn't careful, he will be too, as the new owners are looking for Neil Stickney, who owns a lot of stock in the park, and mysteriously vanished from payroll just a week ago. But first he has to tell Mike about the horrific money laundering going on under their noses.
How do you know all this?
Angus told me in the cafeteria.
Angus. Buried. Round, jovial, sweet, silver-haired Angus.
Almost. He's got a little hole here and blood coming out, but you were close, Mike. Thus the clown gets nowhere in this plea for help, as nobody is willing to even look to see if what he's saying has any merit. Thus, he's on his own, and needs to take out the DeMauro family to save Funland.
But how?
Sabotage. Sabotage the grand opening. That'll show him.
Oh, wait a minute. That's a little extreme, isn't it?
He's asking for advice from a dead guy in a wax figure of Humphrey Bogart. Calm, logical, down-to-earth thinking has long since left the picture.
Sometimes you gotta cut off your hand in order to get rid of the rash.
What the hell is he talking about?
Peter Pepperoni's still part of the meeting, though. He's not really on board with all the plans, though, so I wouldn't count him as part of the conspirators. However, as he plots to destroy the park from within, the new bosses plot to destroy the park from within. Or cut even more expenses, such as the concerts, employee salaries, and last but not least, the superfluous no-name Bruce Berger.
Dump the bozo.
It's not enough. Would you take care of that, Mike?
But of course, like all big, nasty bosses constantly fucking with people's lives, screw responsibility, it's good to be at the top when shit rolls downhill. Mike initially refuses to go along with this, but then they'll say they'll just let Larry go take care of it, so he complies. Right when Bruce is getting ready for the big sabotage as well. Except on the day of execution, it seems Humphrey was shipped off to Chicago, leaving Bruce with only an apathetic puppet and a corpse to help. Angus figures, that's it, the show's over, and there's no reason for him to stick around any longer, and he bids Bruce farewell. Right before Mike shows up with the news.
The DeMaros want you out. You're fired.
So you mean like out of a cannon? I mean, you can't be too sure in this occupation. Mike tells the man that it's not that bad. After all, he can move on and start over. First things first, though, he has to hand over the wig and pizza poncho. All this time, though, Mike never noticed the briefcase Bruce had in the room, and certainly not the contents.
Say, maybe you better put that away. Come on, Bruce. Put it away.
Oh, come on, Peter. It's his first gun, and you always fall in love with your first gun. Thus, Bruce makes new plans for revenge, as the next morning is the grand opening of Funland, and we see the gathering of all the little boys, girls, and Klansmen, for some reason. You think, maybe it might be the first to go in the big clown rampage to come, but actually, no, they don't actually even appear after this scene. But there is something to note here.
Let us remember, while we are having fun, not to enjoy ourselves too much, for that would be sinning.
The minister there, Terry Turner, is the husband of Bonnie Turner from earlier. And he's also a screenwriter. Not entirely sure if he's actually her husband, though. I mean, that just could be someone who fucked it up online. He might be her brother. I mean, he is 6 years younger than her. Not that I'm judging. I mean, they all work together with the screenplay, along with the director, Michael A. Simpson. The first stage of the sabotage is upon us, though, as Bruce makes the clocks go forward by a half hour, causing confusion as the park opens half an hour early, and the staff doesn't know if the park's open or if the park's closed, and it ends up effectively being open with everyone very confused and nothing ready. Soon everything starts coming together, though, as the mobsters learn that Neil, the majority shareholder, is Bruce Berger, and Mike finds out he didn't hand in his stuff last night when he was fired, so he's still in the park. But where?
You got to get up, you got to get up, you got to get up in the morning, you got to get up.
Shut up or I'll blow your head off.
Seems a man camped out on top of the clock tower, adding a new attraction to the park. The shooting gallery. Thus, the body count goes fucking nowhere because Bruce is a terrible shot with this thing, as his repeated attempts on the National Bruce Berger's life only lead to property damage. That is until Carl and Larry recognize the sound of gunfire. Yeah, before these two, no one else in the park realized what all the fuck all those loud bangs were. With that in mind, they don't point out the clown's gone postal and get security on his ass. No, Larry just runs up there to wrestle with him for the gun. I know it's... but... fucking moron. So the Terminated Clown just executed one of his former higher-ups. This looks bad. Until you put a good old-fashioned spin on it, that is.
The local Bruce Burger heroically stopped mobster Larry DeMario's assassination attempt of Chad Peller, the national franchise clown.
I'm sure the whole movie might have been building up to Bruce going fucking crazy. And killing fucking everyone who has ever wronged him, including Chad, but... I mean, you gotta squeeze a happy ending out of this somehow. Also, conveniently enough, the arrest of the DeMaro family tanked the value of Funland stock, which meant that Neil was more than capable of buying it all up, and thus has taken over as the head of Funland. Yes, Neil, not Bruce Berger.
Look, I don't know how or why it happened, but you went crazy today. Really crazy.
Neil, I was as sane as you, Mike.
Kinda funny though, even with all those eyewitness accounts, Mike isn't convinced that Neil was acting heroically, or that really was Larry's gun. Although it really was Larry's gun. Enough talking about the past, it's time to talk about the future of Funland and how Neil plans to pique all the customers' interests to return after today. Simple, it's the 80s. Let's make an indoor roller coaster based on nuclear warfare!
It's a ride that travels through a city that's been leveled by the bomb. It's physical, it's visual, it's emotional, and it is topical, damn it!
I love it. Just want to clarify though, are we using real nukes? Cause if so, I'm not sure we have enough radon stock to deal with the rad roaches. The future of the park isn't any of Mike's business anymore though, as he has officially resigned and just stopped off to give Neil something that they found on top of the clock tower when they went up to repair it. Something he believes belonged to the man.
Is this our office? Wally, we finally hit the top.
See? I told you.
Revealing that this may in fact have been Neil's plan all along. Maybe. I mean, it's really hard to go from A to B in the rantings of a madman, but... You know, in any case, that was Funland. And it's actually really good. Like, surprisingly good. Though it still does manage to fall a little short. One funny thing about the premise of this movie, it isn't the premise of this movie at all. The poster in most every synopsis says it's about a clown gone mad who goes around killing people! Some kind of action, horror, dark comedy flick or the like. That isn't what the movie is at all, though. Yes, it has a clown, and he does go crazy, but the process takes a long time, and he doesn't leave victims in his wake, no matter how hard he tried. Or maybe he didn't try. The ending is ambiguous enough to leave you thinking about it, which is good in some ways. However, it does feel like the movie was building up to this big rampage, and that didn't happen. What we got was still interesting, but it didn't feel quite as satisfying as a rock-solid resolution would have been in place of the popcorn thrills of high-caliber rounds tearing through the amusement park. Perhaps that's because they simply didn't have the budget for anything quite that spectacular. The whole thing looks like really old stock footage, and I think that might be to make it mesh better with the amusement park bits, which very well may be really old stock footage. If that's the case, bravo, nice job. If not, I'm just interpreting intent where none exists and a bad critic. Either way, the print available on DVD, while not what you'd consider eye candy, is at least consistent. Overall, Funland is an interesting tale about a clown's slow descent into madness, and he's mad like a fox. There was also plenty of other recognizable characters milling about doing their own thing during this flick, but they really didn't add much to the plot. The scenes were still enjoyable to watch and acted adequately, but when it comes to everything coming together at the end, that's where Funland suffers. It still does manage to score 3 lunchtime dance routines with bikini suckaby out of 5. Which works, I think. I mean, it's disconnected from everything and really doesn't matter, but it's damn entertaining and I'm glad I saw it. Thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado, and remember, everything is better with tits and legs. I mean, imagine Thanksgiving dinner with just back meat. Ugh.
you'd look at me and say, Bruce, I'd love to take my shoes off and run barefoot through her tits.